What's up guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Victoria and in today's video I'll be showing you how to draft a bustier top with yoke. For this tutorial we'll be needing the following measurements, and I also have the tools that I'll be using to draft out the pattern. So let's get started. So I'll be folding my pattern in two like so, and that folded edge will become my center front. So to begin drafting, I'll be marking 1 inch downwards from the top of my pattern paper. I'm just going to square that point across, and that will become my shoulder line. Next, I'll be marking all my vertical measurements from the shoulder line. So I'm starting with my bust point at 10 inches. I'm just going to square out that point like I did for the shoulder line, and then I'll be marking my under bust point at 14 inches and my waistline at 17 inches. So from the shoulder line, I'm marking my bust point, under bust point and my waistline. Then I square those points out, and then I just labeled what each line stands for. Now that I have the 3 points ready, it's time to work on the neckline and the shoulder slope. And for the neckline, I'll be using 3.5 inches for the neck width and 3 inches for the neck depth. I'll go ahead to connect the 2 points with my French curve and then work on the shoulder slope and the armhole. So to create the shoulder slope, I'm marking half of my shoulder measurement on the shoulder line. So I'm marking 8 inches away from the center front, and from that point I'll be going down by 1 inch before connecting it to the neckline. So now that I'm done with the shoulder slope, it's time to create the armhole, and to do that I'll start by determining my upper chest line, which is my bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5, which is approximately 8 inches. So I just marked 8 inches from the end of the shoulder slope. So I'll just square out that point, and that will become my upper chest line. So the next thing to do is to connect the shoulder slope to the upper chest line and then create my armhole. And I'll begin by marking 1/4 of my bust circumference on the upper chest line. So my bust circumference is 40 inches divided by 4, that's 10 inches. So I'm marking 10 inches away from the center front. Then I'm going to find the midpoint of the line connecting the shoulder slope to the upper chest line. And from there I'll be going in by 3/4 of an inch before using my French curve to connect it to the upper chest line and the shoulder slope. So now that that's done, it's time to create the first dart, and I'll begin by marking half of my bust span measurement on the waistline, the under bust line and on the bust line. Then I'll go ahead to connect the 3 points with my ruler. So now we're creating the dart on either side of this line. So the side towards the center front, I'll be marking 3/4 of an inch, but if you have a smaller bust size, you can mark half an inch, but I'll be going in by 3/4 of an inch. And on the other side towards the side front, I'll be marking 1.75 inches. Again, if you have a smaller bust size, you can go for 1.5 or 1 inch. So the same thing I did on the waistline, I'll be repeating on the under bust line. So I'm marking 0.75 inch towards the center front and 1.75 inches towards the side front. Then I'll be connecting these points in a straight line like so. Now from the bust line, I'll be going down by 1 inch before going in with my French curve to connect that point to meet the points on the under bust line. As you can see, I'm connecting them in a slight curve. Make sure not to curve it too much, and once that's done, that will be all for the first dart. Now the second dart will be created along the shoulder slope, and I'll start by finding the midpoint of that slope and then connecting that point to meet half of my bust span measurement on the bust line. Next, I'll be marking the distance between my bust line and my under bust line, which is 4 inches. And I'll be marking the 4 inches on the line where the second dart will be created from the bust point towards the shoulder slope. And once that's done, I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of that line before going in with my French curve to connect both points to meet my bust span measurement on the bust line. So I'm using a slight curve to connect both points to meet the bust line like so. And that will be all for the second dart. Now for the sweetheart neckline, you can either connect one leg of the dart directly to the upper chest line at the center front, or you can come up from the upper chest line by 1 inch or 1.5 depending on how much cleavage you're willing to show. I'll be coming up by 1.5 because I don't want my cleavage to show at all, and then I'll be connecting that point to meet the first leg of the dart. And there's my sweetheart neckline. Now I'll be connecting the second leg of the dart to meet the armhole. And that's it for the bustier. So I'll be taking away the darts, the first and second dart, which will leave me with 2 separate pieces. But before I go ahead to cut, I'll be inserting all my horizontal measurements. So I'm starting with 1/4 of my bust circumference on the upper chest line plus the 2 inches from the dart, and then 1/4 of my under bust circumference plus the number of inches taken in for the dart as well, which is 2.5 inches total. So I'll be adding 2.5 inches to that measurement. And on the waistline, I did the same thing, 1/4 of my waist measurement plus the number of inches taken in for the dart, which is 2.5 as well. I'm sorry I couldn't capture it. So after placing all my measurements, it's time to connect the points together. So I'm connecting the upper chest line directly to the waistline. Now if you're going for a strapless bustier or a spaghetti strap bustier, at this point all you have to do is add your side seam allowance and cut out both panels. But this is going to have a yoke, so I'm going to connect the second dart like so I'll be able to cut out the yoke. So after cutting, I'll be left with 3 separate panels: the yoke, the center front and the side front. So at this point you can go ahead and add your seam allowances if you have enough room. I don't, so I won't be adding any side seam allowance. But around the hem I'll be adding 1/2 inch seam allowance because this top is going to be attached to a skirt. It's actually a gown, so I'm just adding 1/2 inch seam allowance along the hem, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So after cutting, I'm going to open it up, and this is what it looks like. You can see the bustier pattern and the yoke. So all I have to do is to place this pattern onto fabric and cut it out with my seam allowances, and I'll be adding it along the darts, the sides and the neckline. So guys, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if there's any question, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.